Play City is on a mission to create more inclusive, active, and tolerant communities through play. We have the founder and CEO Hafiz with us today. Thanks for joining us, Hafiz.
Thanks for the invite. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So just to get started, tell us, how exactly are you creating these real diverse communities through the Play City app?
Okay, right into the fire, hey. uh, Play City is a platform that was created to really bring together people through a shared interest. So many people that I've met on the platform give me testimonials saying that that person that I met was from completely different background that I would have never have met. I don't work with them. I don't go to school with them. They're not in my neighborhood per se, but because they're an intermediate tennis player that's available at this time, we ended
Right.
up meeting at the courts, and then conversation starts, and that's the magic, right? It's just as long as you can get that conversation started with a shared interest and break the ice, the rest kind of works itself out.
Okay, so people just have to log into the app and search for others with a shared interest, and they get going from there.
That's essentially it. Yeah, there's two types of main activities on the platform. One are for people looking to find like a one-on-one matchup of sorts. So if you're looking for like an accountability partner for the gym, that's like intermediate or an advanced, gym goer, you can go find that. Or you can
Mhm.
find an event that's been curated by our community of like ambassadors or people that we work with. So if you want to like, facilitated hike, for example, or facilitated bike ride around the city, like those are things that you can find on the app as well too.
Okay, okay, and just building on that. So you have a model where individuals obviously can connect with each other, but you are also partnering up with organizations, to
Mhm.
further build stronger communities. So how does that work? How does the organizations part work?
Yeah, so organizations that we partner with are kind of work twofold. One, they are a channel to their community that they already
Mhm.
have. That's a trusted, network of people. But because we have a shared interest in increasing participation in activity, but also creating community, they see it as every one of our partnerships is a win-win.
Right.
Because if we can get more people playing, they're more likely to, buy more gear. They're more likely to, be involved in the active economy. They're more likely to form friendships. They're more likely to retain their membership at that specific facility as well too. So we become a community building piece within an organization, like a
Mhm.
gym or a big box gym, but also around that surrounding area to say, because I live in this area and I find someone on the app, maybe I'm going to go to that gym or look at that park beside the neighborhood or whatever. So the key for us has always been to find partnerships that get it, that are
Okay.
aligned. And then it just makes things a lot easier because the goal is very similar.
What's your story? Like, how did you come up with this idea of starting Play City?
My story is a little interesting. Like, so I'll take it back to like when I was like, I don't know, 14, 15, 16. I remember playing a lot of sports in my backyard, for example, right? Like my dad bought me a basketball net. So I was just always shoot hoops, and I was the house that all my friends would come to just to play in the backyard. We had a concrete backyard versus everyone's grass backyard. So I had a hockey net back there, and it was just like the place to be to play. Um, but that was the only time I would play sports because I was a shy kid. I didn't really have enough confidence to like try out for teams or whatever in school. So I never did, right? And I never kind of found my way until I one day just joined this like street hockey like team that was playing, and I didn't even play as a player because I was just like nervous or whatever. I knew I could play, I just didn't know that I could hang. So they just put me in net, and and then all of a sudden I started to like play more and more, and actually got better as a goalie. So when I joined my first hockey team, my rec hockey team, I gained so much from just that experience, right? Like the camaraderie, the teammates, the confidence, the leadership skills, communication, all these things kind of came together. So that was way back. I didn't know that was going to be the seeds for Play City, but I always knew in my mind that I just love to play. Who doesn't love to play? Like we're adults. We work because we have to make time to play. So in my mind, I was like, I want to just play as much as I can. So I started to run my own hockey teams. I would do a lot of things that were just like community building in general. But um, to fast forward to 2014, I'd sold my shares of a company was really finance focused, and for me, I've always been more of a community guy. So we were kind of hitting this like fork in the road, and we finally made the decision to go our separate ways. And that their company is doing really well, and it gave me the wings to kind of do what I wanted to do. So I came back to Calgary, and I remember sitting around and journaling. Actually, on my trip to India, on my sabbatical, I took a trip to India and Nepal, and I was just journaling about like what I wanted to do and what really drove me, and kind of asking those hard questions, right? Like, why am I here? What's my purpose? What do I want to be remembered for? Like, what's the impact I want to make? And everything kind of came back to stuff that I felt like I was naturally just inclined to do, which was to bring people together, to play, to have fun, to like do stuff, right? Um, so I had these like inklings of like what I wanted to do, but then when I came back to Calgary, I remember I just wanted to pick up tennis. It was one of the new sports that I haven't really played. I had these like beautiful courts next to my condo, and I just found it incredibly difficult to find people to play that were in my skill level. And again, my anxiety started to creep up again. I'm like, I want to hang out at the courts, but I don't want to talk to them because I don't know how to play. And man, I don't even have the right shoes, and do I have the right racket? Like, I don't even know what I'm doing here, right? So then I start to kind of have more of an idea of like, I think there's more people out there that are like me, that have a tough time meeting people, especially when they want to play an activity, because it's the anxiety of a skill level, Um, so I started to validate that. I asked as many people as I could, and the two things that kept on coming up were like, yeah, I find it tough to meet people based on my network, but also finding someone that has the same skill level as me. So I kind of knew I was onto something, and then the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I just started to reference things that were already working. So you look at like Bumble or Tinder or all these other dating apps that really have done the same thing. They're using technology to give you preferences and Match.com or whatever, just to make the match for you. And then you kind of go do your thing, right? So I thought, why don't we do the exact same thing, but for physical activity buddies? And yeah, I launched that in 2016 after, I wireframed the app myself, and that was a new experience for me. And, I found a developer to do it and give me some time for equity and whatnot. And yeah, we ended up launching in 2016, and yeah, the rest is history.
Awesome. And I'm so glad you took out the time, to think what to do next. I think that's really important, and that's not everyone does that or gets a chance to do that or decide to consciously do that. But I think in
Totally.
today's world, it's really important to take some time off, whatever you can afford to, and
Mm.
look at things from a different perspective. I mean, you are a great example of that, and yeah, thanks for sharing that story. On the digital community front, so what have been some of your biggest challenges of building a digital community that could also serve as an advice for entrepreneurs who are just getting
Mm.
started in this domain?
Totally. There's been many challenges. Like I'm
Mhm.
not a developer
Right.
so I used to be a COO of a company called Joy
Mhm.
Media, and we were a tech company, but I was the strategy and operations guy. So I understand
Mhm.
how things should work and some of the outcomes and whatever else, but I've never coded a day in my life.
Mhm.
So, but when I started this company, I was kind of like, a lone wolf. I was like, I've had partners before, kind of want to do it on my own. Let's just see what happens. But that's where the challenges began right away, because if you don't have people that have skin in the game from the get go, it's very hard for them to do the work and
Right.
it's very expensive as well too, right? So my advice for entrepreneurs building digital companies or tech companies, find a co-founder. I think having a co-founder
Mhm.
to complement your skill set is definitely very important, because not being a solo founder is very tough. It's very taxing on the
Right.
mind and your spirit and just like everything, right? So when you have people around you that are aligned with the same goal, that's very important. So not
Mhm.
only mentors, but actually people working day in day out, just as hard as you are, but on a specific realm of the business. While you're working on business development, they're working on the infrastructure or whatever that looks like. So that would be my
Mhm.
first thing. Secondly, I'd say I don't think you have to reinvent the wheel, right? Today's technology, and the different stacks out there as well too, and just like codeless apps and stuff like that. There's so many options that people can utilize if they do a little bit of work and research. Um, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's so many like platforms that you can utilize right now that are licensed versus building the thing from scratch, right? So if I can
Right.
turn back time, I probably would have saved like a lot of money and a lot of heartache going
Yeah.
into technology that sometimes is buggy, and you have to like make sure that it's up to date, and things are always evolving. Like it's a tough game. But if you have someone dedicated to that, or you're using a
Hmm.
stack that's like a license, for example, there's definitely options to mitigate some of those obstacles.
Yeah. Yeah, no code is a big movement now. I guess it wasn't when probably you were starting, but now
Hmm.
it's really catching up. With in the last year, most of the outdoor activities had shut down because of COVID. So you also started working on building a digital community for entrepreneurs. Could you
Hmm.
tell us a bit about that? What exactly are you doing there?
Yeah, sure. So you're right. So most of the activities did stop indoors, right? So what we actually did for Play City was that we realized that many people were still looking for friendship and activity and things to do outside, but they needed facilitation. So we
Right.
started doing like facilitated hikes. So I'm born and raised in Calgary. I'm right beside the mountains. And last year was probably the most I've actually been to Banff and Lake Louise and all these other like mountainous areas in my life. Because for work, I had to like figure out how to manage these hikes. So every 2 weeks we were doing a guided hike, and we had a ton of people show up for that. But we also started something called the hide and seek program. It was a campaign that you would use our app to find clues of where we've hidden something in the city, and then you would go find that piece like a scavenger hunt, take a picture of
Right.
it. And that would be your ballot to win something from one of our partners. Like Mech would be giving away $50 as a gift certificate, or we'd give away a Play City hat, or you
Hmm.
know kombucha, or whatever that looks like, right?
Right.
So that was kind of like the activity side. We did a lot of facilitated stuff outdoors. But on the digital front, what we started was something. It was called the Collective first. So every Wednesday for all of 2020, or as soon as COVID hit in Calgary, so March of 2020, we just decided that we were going to create space for anyone in our ecosystem to show up and have vulnerable conversations about how they were doing, what they were working
Hmm.
on, some stuff for marketing, how could we leverage each other's networks, really like a support group for anyone in the Play City community. So that was like app users, rec leaders, there's Olympians on the call. There was a whole variety of people, anyone in the ecosystem. But what we realized was that as soon as like people were getting temporarily laid off, and didn't have to be there, they would stop showing up. So the people that would show up still were the entrepreneurs, because they were the solo founders. They were the ones that were actually getting the camaraderie and getting the most from it, because they were the ones connected. It was their business that they were focusing on.
Right.
So that happened for all of 2020. And in 2020 we ran 42 meetings, and grew
Wow.
the community quite large. And then over the break, I was talking to my sister, and she's like, I think you're onto something here. I think that the people that show up will validate that you're doing something good for them, and for the community. So why don't you rebrand it and make this thing a membership organization?
Hmm.
So that's what we did. We changed the collective to Entrepreneurs Anonymous, and it's a lot more clear on the value proposition, on what we're trying to do and for whom. So yeah, we launched that in January, and now we meet every Wednesday. And you were there yesterday, and
Right.
it's a growing group of entrepreneurs now. So it's very niche, but it's kind of this evolution of this like collective.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea. I love my first interaction with so many people. I think, yeah, you're definitely onto something there. It's so good, in all this chaos, you got to find something and started a second business. So I guess that's silver lining there. Lastly, Hafiz, so I just want to understand what lies ahead for Play City and Entrepreneurs Anonymous. What can we expect in this year and in the coming 2 to 3 years? So what are your plans?
I got to meditate on that, man. You know, things are changing so fast.
Right.
Things are really changing so fast, but I really believe that Play City is well situated as a solution to many people's problems that they're facing during isolation, which is
Hmm.
like lack of physical activity, lack of social connection. A lot of people are lonely, they're anxious and stressed out. So I truly believe, I'm very optimistic on where we land when things are a little more, I guess the restrictions are eased a bit. So I think we're good there. And I also believe that from a wellness perspective, employees or employers are really seeing the benefit of really creating culture of connection and unstructured play within the enterprise. So I really want to pivot Play City into the enterprise and create closed communities for a company of like 200 people to say, did you know that this individual down the hall that you've never met before because they're in a different department also loves squash and they're intermediate?
Mm.
Maybe you guys should go play and actually create camaraderie and help retention and build culture in this like very tense environment. So that's where I see Play City going. And then on the Entrepreneurs Anonymous side, I really feel that entrepreneurs are the backbone of any economy. I think that with innovation, with ideation, there comes a lot of stress. There comes with a lot of anxiety with that as well too. And I believe that entrepreneurs, when they're there for each other, especially when we're magnifying each other's like purpose and our businesses and whatever else, like everybody wins, right? So I see Entrepreneurs Anonymous as another growing organization that can really fill the gap for a lot of people. And my goal is to really scale that. It's a lot easier to scale that one for us because we're only utilizing like say Zoom, right? But it's been cool. So we'll see where it goes. I can't tell you exactly where things are going, but I feel optimistic for both.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, really inspired by Play City and Entrepreneurs Anonymous, that both the platforms that you're building. And the future looks definitely bright for both of them. And I wish you luck, for
Thanks, man.
for the future. And thanks again for joining us today and sharing all these insights.
No, I appreciate it, honestly. And one thing I would leave everyone with, like you said it earlier about the taking the time to think, right? I think everyone has some kind of purpose within them. Like, everyone as a kid kind of knows what they like to do. We're forced to do things based on societal pressures and whatever else. Take the time to figure it out, like journal, meditate on it, really let things simmer and sit so that when you come back to, reality, whatever that looks like, what your purpose is. And every day kind of try to uncover that. Don't just settle for what you think, your parents tell you to do or what you think you should do because it's safe or whatever. Like life is so short. Take the chance, and especially if it's a side project or whatever, see where things go. But I encourage anyone to try to build some kind of community or do something like, what you're doing right now. It's incredible as well, right? Like you've created a platform with a specific like purpose, right? And you're seeing the traction grow with that as well too. And your network's growing as well. So I think more and more people need to take the time to actually think about what they want to do and what they want to like give back to the world and do what you're doing as well too, man. So yeah, you're inspired me as well too.